Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Minor Obsession. Exciting episode for you today. We're joined by head coach of your women's basketball team, Coach Cara Consuegra. Coach, welcome. Thanks for joining. Happy New Year. How you doing?
Doing great. Always good to see you all. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an exciting season so far that we want to get into, but we haven't caught up with you since all of the craziness happened last year. So for a few minutes, let's start off with going back. It might be a little tough to go that far into your memory bank here, but uh, Conference USA tournament last year just came off beating North Texas, and the rest of the tournament gets canceled. What's going through your mind? How did the team respond to that? Take us through what happened on the next few weeks after that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a situation hopefully you'll never have to deal with again. I mean, we were in our walkthrough and finishing our walkthrough, literally going over the last thing, getting ready to eat. We're really sharp. The kids were ready. And my phone rang, which I knew was bad because I had it on Do Not Disturb. So I knew somebody was trying to get a hold of me. So I pulled my phone out and it says Mike Hill. And right away, I knew it. I mean, that's all I had to see. So I walked out of the room. I talked to him. Obviously, he told me it was canceled, which somewhat wasn't a surprise, right? When all that went down with the NBA the night before, there was a sense it could happen. But I will say walking back into that ballroom and having to tell our players was difficult, especially our seniors. I just felt, horrible for them. But again, I think we were disappointed but not surprised, just knowing it was kind of trending in that direction. Our administration was amazing. They got us home that night, which was incredible. And then from there, we all went our separate ways. I told all of our players to go home. So much was unknown at that point and scary. Like, go home to your homes, finish school online there. And then we didn't see the players again until, a few of them trickled in at the end of May, early June when we were able to start getting them back. But most of them we didn't see again until July, which is just very rare for us. Basketball is at the point where we don't have much of an off season. So that was hard, just trying to stay in touch with them. And we would do Zoom meetings once a week, and they were good, but they're not the same as that face-to-face interaction, and you're losing time getting better. And so, we made it through all that and we're on the other side. And, I think you grow from every situation. I certainly think we grew from that.
So continuing with the off season, can you talk a little bit about recruiting and how that's changed over the year? And have you been doing a lot of these Zooms, I guess, or what are you guys doing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Scott. I think recruiting is probably one of the things affected the most, right? Because we've been shut down. We haven't been out on the road since, I haven't seen a recruit play since February of last year. We watch a lot on film, which isn't very fun. I'll tell a quick story. I watched a game this summer of a player that I thought I was supposed to be watching, but it's a streaming service. It's not great. I mean, who knows who's running that camera? I watched the whole game, and then I watched the next day. I had to watch the team again, and I realized that wasn't even the right kid. I couldn't read her number. I know, and so that it's just frustrating. Because, I watched the whole game thinking it was one kid. It was actually another because I couldn't read her number on the jersey and I'd never seen her before, So you got to deal with some of that in terms of just trying to see talent, which for me is hard because I watch the intangibles so much. You guys know our values play with heart, and I want to be able to see those things, and those come out a lot. Watching kids on the bench, watching how they interact with their teammates, their coaches. So we're missing out on that, which is difficult. But you try to make some of that up by phone calls and Zoom calls, right? We've done quite a bit of Zoom calls and been able to share videos and things that we would do with kids if they were here on campus. And so, again, you just kind of adjust and do the best that you can.
Yeah, it did seem like all of our 49er teams had to switch to meeting virtually to keep that team cohesion there. Did you see certain players or maybe some of the older players really step up in that virtual environment and kind of take on that leadership role to try and keep the lines of communication open over the offseason when they couldn't meet in person?
Yeah, they did. I would say I kind of made them too. And that I met with our older players, mostly our seniors, once a week separately, for that reason. Like, I felt it was important that they checked in with me, that they had time with me, but to also, kind of encourage them, hey, you guys need to be leaders here right now, because during that time we were shut down. I mean, we couldn't even make it mandatory for our players to work out. because there's still so much unknown about the virus. And so we didn't want to put anybody in a dangerous position. So, even though kids were home, we couldn't say, hey, you got to get in a shooting workout and send it to me or something like that, right? We weren't allowed to do any of that. It was really on them as student athletes to talk to each other about how they're staying in shape and what they're doing and how they're able to, manage that the best that they can. So, I tried to help them, kind of grow as leaders, especially for our team. We lost one of the best leaders we've ever had in our program in Jade Phillips. And so that was a big change for us. And so, I did it in that way. I also had our leaders, our upperclassmen, they had to lead some of our Zoom calls. So it wasn't always me. And they were allowed to pick, whatever topic that they wanted to. And they had to, essentially create a 40-minute Zoom call to create team discussion, bonding, and that threw them into a leadership position too. And so, I think all of that helped them grow.
That's awesome. And that sounds like, after the game, after basketball, like those are going to be good skills that they're going to have for corporate America for sure. I feel like I've never been on so many Zoom calls in my life.
Right. Well, you're exactly right. Because I told them, hey, you can't just get on the Zoom call and talk. Like, you have to prepare something. So they had PowerPoints and videos and discussion questions. It was very well done.
So when you finally did break the barrier and get folks back to campus, what was that off-season practice schedule like? Because I feel like basketball got on campus a little earlier than I thought they were going to be able to, and certainly football being a little ahead in the schedule might have helped out the blueprint of how to do it. But was your timeline pushed substantially back in terms of warming up for the season and getting ready for November come game time?
Yeah, again, you're right. We were lucky in that basketball and football were able to get on campus in July, which is fairly close to when we would bring our freshmen in anyway. But what really pushed us back was just acclimating them back. We can't bring them back in July after not working out with us for how many months. And for our kids, when they were home, most of them didn't have access to anything. They didn't have a gym to go to. They didn't have a weight room. They were literally, tracks, their gates were locked. Our kids were literally like running on the road wherever they could. And some of our kids don't have knees and ankles that they should be running on the road. So you don't want to encourage them too much. So, a lot of things that all basketball teams were dealing with. But, my point is you can't just get here on July and be like, oh, boom, let's go do everything that we normally do. We spent a lot of time, and this is a shout out to Stacy Weaver, my strength coach, and she was all on me about, how we need to acclimate them back. And, we didn't play anything live. I would say until almost September, which is different for us. Like all summer, I like to play games, like 3-on-3 games, 2-on-2 games, 1-on-1 games. I think that's how you really build skill development. But we didn't, we just didn't feel like their bodies were ready for that. We didn't want any knee injuries or anything like that because they just weren't loaded and ready for that. So I think that's more so what really changed for us.
So diving into the season, I think Mike Hill in everything has really done well with building schedules out and kind of making things work. And we've had a pretty fun, I guess, not from a win percentage, but like a good in-state or area of games with App and Clemson and Chapel Hill. And we were competitive in all of those. Only, I guess, 1 or 2 cancellations. The Davidson one was kind of unfortunate. Can you talk a little bit about that kind of uncertainty of games happening or not happening, and I guess the positive of having some of those in-state games as well?
Yeah, great question. It was stressful at the time, right? Because you're losing games. We pulled out of some games because I just didn't want to travel us very far. We've been committed to doing everything we can to have our kids play, but protecting them the best manner that we can. So, we were supposed to go to a tournament at Coastal Carolina, which isn't far, but, a tournament situation, I wasn't sure like how controlled it would be, who would be in there, who wouldn't. I wasn't comfortable with it. We were supposed to go up and play a game in DC against George Washington. I just didn't want to travel them far. So, I pulled out of a lot of games early, which was stressful because then I'm thinking, okay, I hope we can get games to replace this. And you're right. We were fortunate. We've been wanting to play North Carolina for a long time, and it just didn't work out. And so, we were able to get them on the schedule. Wake, we've played a lot. Even Clemson, we were actually supposed to scrimmage them, and then we said, well, heck, let's make it a game, and we did. And in a perfect world, would I have played those three teams back to back to back? No, I would not have. But it worked. I mean, that's how it worked in the schedule. And you have to balance, like, we have to get games because we have to get to 13, and we don't know what's going to happen. But I also felt good that I knew we could compete in those games. We were 1 or 2 possessions away for winning all 3 of those. And so that was a big challenge too, of just keeping our kids' confidence, and knowing that we're right there. We get a little bit better. We switch a couple things. There's a chance we run off 3 straight wins against ACC teams. This is going to help us for conference play, like, stay the course.
Yeah, it certainly has been close every single game. And, I'm not sure if you saw the tweet, but I said, if you guys are going to keep having these day games, you're going to have to slow it down a little bit, because I'm trying to fire off emails, and every time I look, there's 5 possessions gone because you guys play so quick running up and down the court. But it certainly is a fun team to watch this season, and having so many players return that were instrumental in last year's success is impressive. And, one of the things I've taken away from watching the first few games, obviously, Octavia is really stepping into her own this season in the role she's holding. Jada and Mariah still doing their thing. But JC Busick, as the freshman, has really impressed me. Hustle, being on the court all the time, ability to shoot the 3 and play inside. How are you feeling about your starting 5 right now going into conference play?
I think we have as good of a starting 5 as anybody in this league. Maybe from each position is the deepest of, at least who I've seen so far. I haven't seen everybody, so it's probably not fair to say, but I take our starting 5 against anybody. I mean, and you're exactly right. I mean, great observations. Octavia is playing at an extremely high level, and I'm proud of her. That kid has been through a lot through her career here, from injuries to illness and different things. And for her as a senior to be playing the way that she is, I'm happy for her. I'm excited for her. I can't wait for her to see how she does, through conference play, because again, we played App and Campbell, who are both good teams, but she was doing that against, ACC teams, and that says a lot. I think, like you said, Jada is playing extremely well. For her to be our leading scorer right now is amazing, because as a kid that I couldn't even get to shoot as a freshman. So I'm taking a lot of pride in just her role in developing as a scoring point guard, which is what we like here. JC as well. I mean, it goes back to what I said about recruiting, right? When we go and watch kids and we watch their intangibles and everything that they do, immediately we knew JC Busick needed to be a 49er because of all those things. You're right. She's skilled. She has a huge ceiling. She's going to keep getting better. Her ability to shoot the 3 and stretch the floor is huge for us, because we have some kids that are just so great at getting to the rim. And so now the defenders have to choose. But just her work ethic, her want to, her competitiveness, her willingness to do all the little things and the hustle plays, I think has really helped us in terms of elevating everybody to that level.
And don't forget her strong trick shot ability. I think that's what really caught initially.
Good point. Well done.
So we're going into conference play now. I guess want to preview the Marshall game. Hopefully the women's basketball team's going to be the first team to actually play Marshall this season, which is kind of exciting. Fingers crossed. What's your thoughts going into that? And also the conference scheduling, both for men and women's, the back-to-back day games. Do you like that? Are you nervous about that? Do you think that's going to go well for us, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, to answer the second question about the back-to-backs, it's hard because I haven't done it yet, right? We didn't get an opportunity to do it next week. I did pick the brain of everybody on our men's staff, between myself and our staff, just like, hey, what'd you guys think? What would you have done differently? What did you do? Which there was nothing mind-blowing about that. I mean, the biggest thing is balancing as a coach, like, how do you prepare them, but also knowing, like, a back-to-back collegiate games are difficult, right? And so you've got to spend that time to prepare them, but also make sure that they're as fresh as possible. So I have cut down on a lot of our practice time this week. And it's nice because, again, most of my starting 5, right, 4 out of my 5 are kids that have played a long time for me. right? And so that helps us because they know the schemes, they know how we play things, they know what we do. So that's helped some as well. But I probably will be able to answer that question a little bit better after we go through it. In terms of Marshall, it's going to be an interesting matchup because we've been off for some time. They've had a lot of interruptions. I mean, they've only played 2 non-conference games, and then, obviously they had an opportunity to play last week. So, the good thing about them is, they traditionally run a lot of the same stuff, just different personnel. So a lot of it for us is knowing the personnel and how to play it. But the actions, we've seen a lot of those before. Our returners have seen a lot before. But I'll be curious to see, one more week, how much more stuff they have in. I would say they don't have as much stuff that they would normally have in, and I'm sure that's due to interruptions. So that'll be interesting in terms of just adjusting on the fly. I think we'll have to do that some. But I do think it's a good matchup for us, just knowing, and probably for both teams, right? We both, had some time off. We're both not really probably in a groove right now. And so I think that's going to add, create a good matchup.
What opponent Conference USA team would you say has improved most since last year that you're really circling on the calendar? I know you always try and look at the games right in front of you, but at the back of your mind, you got to think, okay, here's our competition going into tournament time, who I'm really keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, Middle Tennessee, I mean, that not that they've necessarily improved because they're always good, but I'm looking forward to that matchup. We get to play them at home 2 years in a row, which I think will be great. They have one of the best guards in the country right now, Anastasia Hayes, who is leading, or she was, I don't know if she is this week, but she was leading the country in scoring. So there's someone, if we want to win a championship, we got to beat them. And so I'm excited, for that opportunity. If we want to be the best, we got to beat the best. We don't get to play North Texas, but I was really impressed with North Texas. They won, 2 games at UAB. UAB graduated a slew of kids from last year, but they're a good program. And I thought that was a really interesting, to see that. I think North Texas is going to be really good. So that will be, interesting if we see them. I mean, I think we've seen them in the Conference USA tournament almost every year. So I think that will be interesting if we get matched up with them again and not having played them during the season. So that's going to create some really interesting things, right? You're going to be able to go into that conference season and potentially play an opponent you haven't seen at all. And so I think that's a whole nother dynamic that will just be really interesting.
So, Coach, we wanted to do a little rapid fire with you, do a little fun activity. I know, in the current times it's a little tough, so loosen it up a little bit. We've got a few questions for you, just whatever comes off the top of your mind.
All right, let's do it.
We'll be a little mix. So we'll start with an easy one. What's your favorite Bold Rush uniform? We've got the gold ones, the green ones, the white ones.
I like the gold, which we haven't debuted yet, and we'll actually debut them this weekend. But I really like the gold. It's different. I've never had it as a coach here, so I'm excited about that.
What age do you think your kids are going to beat you in horse?
Never.
I like that. Follow up, sort of, and I guess this goes to your team. If you were eligible for the trick shot challenge over the early COVID period, do you think you could have won that?
Absolutely. Next
and what would have been your move there?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure. We have a hoop in our house, so I would have probably done something like, off the wall or off the loft, off the wall into the hoop, something like that to use our house.
I like it, and we hope to see that again this offseason because that was literally the best thing that happened for the first 2 months of COVID.
Awesome. We can make that happen.
Yeah. If you could choose one past player or coach you work with to put a cardboard cutout in the stands to root you guys on, who would it be?
Oh man, I might have to go with Jade Phillips. She was the epitome of an energy giver, right? I know what pose I'd put up there for her.
Yeah.
Every time she made a tough shot, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'd put up.
Love it. Sean, you going to say something?
I was just going to say, we're not quite Jade Phillips, but there's one of each of us they're rooting you on, so you can at least sleep well.
I gotta go find you guys.
No, we're bringing an injury.
All right, I'm going to go find you.
We're out there. What's your favorite cheat meal?
Waffle House.
Oh,
Smothered and
what do you
covered.
get?
What are you doing
Yeah,
with the hash browns?
Oh, that's more my husband's alley. I go for the grits with cheese, eggs over
chocolate chip waffle.
easy, bacon well done, and I just go plain waffle, which usually my children steal from me, so I don't even normally get that.
And last one for you. Given the season, I think it's kind of been a little dressed down for the year. Do you prefer your coaching staff dressed up or dressed down?
That's a funny question. We debated this. The professional in me is struggling a little bit with being dressed down, just with the way that I was raised. And, it was hard for me to do that, even though my coaches asked me every day, were we going to wear polos? But now that I'm in it, I do actually like it. And what I like about it is that it saves me time. I don't have to worry about my outfit, which is important to ladies. So it's turned out to be good, I think.
You're gonna try and carry
Probably more
that forward into
mobility
the new room.
too. I was just saying probably more mobility as well at times.
For sure. The heels are never coming back. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that was my question. Are you going to carry this forward into when fans are back in? Can we expect
No, I
polos
haven't
around?
decided yet. It'll be interesting to see. I think a lot of teams probably will.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some staffs did it before COVID, right? You could see some staffs had just made the decision. So it was interesting to see this season, both men's and women's choose to go that route with, I mean, I guess it makes sense with no fans in the stands, keep it a little lower key.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more question before we let you go, because I know we talked to Coach Vic a couple weeks ago from the men's team and talked to him about the lack of fans there. So, and he mentioned that the men's team's using BYE, bring your own energy. So what's your approach to getting the team to bring that energy that we're missing in Halton Arena right now?
That's interesting, because I actually had this conversation with Ron because he was talking to me about just the challenge of them. I think actually women's basketball, unfortunately, you have an advantage, right? Because just the crowds aren't as traditionally as good generally, right? Halton is great, especially on our Saturdays when we get, a packed crowd. The energy is fantastic. But, unfortunately, again, we're used to playing in gyms where there's not a lot of people there. And so, giving energy and celebrating each other and giving positive touches are already part of our standard. So for us, it really hasn't been anything that we've had to change, because that has always been required. That's always how we've been. There's plenty of places where we've played where right before we go out, I say, hey guys, it's us and nobody else right now. We've got to bring our own energy. So, our kids in some ways are used to that, and I don't think it's affected us that much. But on a side note, I do think it's really interesting, especially in men's basketball, right? There's some teams that are struggling that traditionally don't. And I have wondered if the lack of, the energy in their home arenas has been part of that.
Yeah, it certainly is interesting. I'll tell you, obviously you've got two people at home watching and rooting you on right now, but the number of subscribers on the YouTube channel while the streams are going on I've been pretty impressed with the numbers. So hopefully that transitions over into people being bought in and coming back to the program when they can.
Yeah, I hope so. That would be great. And I was thrilled that our administration did that. That's been great to be able to keep, our fans involved when they can't be here.
Yep. Well, we've kept you long enough. Appreciate you stopping by. As always, it's great to hear your insights and see how the team's doing. And really excited to see how Conference USA goes as you finally get to kick it off this weekend, since you missed last weekend. And as sad as it is that the men don't get to play, it is nice that we don't have to have an iPad and a TV screen going at the same time, because we've talked about in the past how difficult it is when tip-offs are the same time between the two teams. So rooting for you as always, and hopefully we can catch up with you as the conference season goes on.
Well, thank you, and thanks for all you do to cover not just my team, but all the teams here in Charlotte. I love listening to you guys and really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Coach.